So a couple of weeks ago, I made this small and pretty scene in Blender 3.2 to test the new caustic shadows feature. And many people liked it, so they asked for a tutorial. And here we are. Alright, so for this tutorial, I'm going to use Blender 3.2 Alpha, today's build. It's just been a couple of weeks that the shadow caustic option has appeared inside Blender. And this is exactly why I created this scene, to test that. So be sure to use a build that has that capability. Okay, so welcome to this tutorial. Let's get started. Bye-bye the full cube. Okay, for the gemstone, let's append a shape. I'm going to use a different... So don't forget that there's a gemstone video, so everybody can model their gemstones. So I'm going to append a new shape. Let's go for a pure shape, I guess. Pure shape is going to be very nice. Now, that's the gemstone here. And let's put it to a size about 6.4. And don't forget to copy paste the scales. All right, so let's save. For now, I have a new directory for this caustic test. So the shadow caustics, they don't do much, but we're going to see a couple of interesting things. Now let's rotate somewhere here, and that's pretty nice. Somewhere here, no, maybe there. And let's do Shift D. We're going to bring two gemstones. And this one we're going to rotate to this side and maybe make it smaller. Here, and top view, let's go here somewhere. Obviously, let's not touch the other gemstone. Let's be close. Place the gemstones in a fashionable way like this. Remove the light source. It's not something we're going to use. Now set the camera view. Now I'll control 0 to set the view to the camera. We can tweak that later also. Now we're going to create a new colored sapphire here. Let's put it to the other one, colored sapphire. Okay, we need a floor, add mesh plane. Let's call it floor. Let's make it big as the view, so let's rotate here. Let's move back and forth here, a bit bigger, a bit smaller, a bit wider. Okay, just a bit more here and there. Okay, this is great. That's the floor. Let's create a new material for the floor. Okay, now let's go to render preview. We're gonna have this. So obviously everything is gray. So we need some environment HDR. Always pretty in pink right there. Now textures here. Let's use this one, has a lot of contrast. Okay, that's what we have for now. Now we need to create a light source because the shadow caustics, they work with the light sources. So let's light spotlight. All right, so let's start placing the lights, maybe a bit from the back here. Without the transparency of the gemstones, obviously it's not very interesting yet, but let's put an overshoot here. And here, shadow caustics, we're here because of this new option, shadow caustics. Use nodes, and let's put 250. This is pretty good. Let's make it smaller, 35 maybe, 38. This is nice. Let's maybe move it a bit more to the back here. Let's keep it very sharp for now. Okay, this is what we have for a standard setting. For a very basic setting at the beginning, we have the gemstones, we have the floor, we have the spotlight. Obviously, for the objects, we also need to activate here on the object properties. You need to go to shading, and the floor is going to receive the shadow caustics, and the gems, they're going to cast the shadow caustics. Don't forget to do that, because these options are the new features. So we are here all because of that today in this tutorial. Great. Now let's create some shading. Let's go to the view, render preview. We obviously need to work on the materials. There are a couple of tricks that you are going to see and you are going to like a lot here on the materials. So first, transmission 1, IOR 176, 173, that's for sapphires. And roughness 0, specular 1. Okay, so now we need some color for, we're going to make some yellow sapphires. They're very pretty. All right, this is great. It's pretty nice. So obviously we're already starting to see a bit of coloration on the floor. Okay, so first thing we're going to check is the effect of the shadow caustic. Okay, so let's remove on the spotlight, let's remove the casting of the shadow caustics. Okay, so in fact, it adds to the shadows and it removes that pretty colored shadow that we're seeing now. But guess what? It's more realistic. If you take pictures of gemstones in a strong light, depending on the refractive index, obviously, you are going to see more shadow than coloration. That's because the light rays are moved a lot from their original direction because of the refractive index. So that looks nice, it looks fancy, but it's technically wrong. And this is more realistic. And yes, honestly, I like it less. And we're going to work on that using some tweaks to get something between this and that. Because this is realistic, but it's not pretty. This is pretty, but it's not so realistic. We need some shadows. We need some refractive shadows from the gemstones because that's what happens in real life. All right. So turn it back on and we're going to work on this material. So we're going to change a couple of things. First, the RGB, the color, we're going to put it, set it apart here. Now here we can add some ambient occlusion. That already adds to the contrasts in the gemstones. Something I'm going to do with the lights also. I think I'm going to add a second spotlight here. Obviously, we're going to tweak the power of each one. So let's go down a lot. Do 100 here, 50 here, even less. Okay, 50, 20. Let's go at less power here. Okay. Let's have a look at without. Okay, so again, without, it's more colorful. But that's something that we're going to solve right now. So there's a famous way to get some effects on the shadows. If you want some colored shadows, you need to bring the light path node here somewhere. Now let's bring a transparent BSDF. Okay, the color is going to be the same, and we need a mix shader here. Okay. and this is going to go here. So now, while testing this build, I noticed that working with transparent depth here makes something very interesting. And I'm going to use and take advantage of that today to make something amazing with this build and these gemstones. And something very important here, I have the transparent shader on top of the principal shader while mixing the shaders. Normally, you would have the principal shader on top of the transparent shader, and that changes everything. And yes, I can say that I found that by accident, because normally using this workflow is known to many, and the principal shader is on top. It's something that just came out like that. And then I noticed that the transparent depth made very interesting refractions. And that's what I'm going to use during this entire tutorial. So yes, all the shaders are in reversed order. That's why we can get different results that I find simply amazing. So here in transparent depth, I'm already getting something better. I mean, everybody knows this workflow, but here we're going to use this transparent depth here. And this is already pretty nice. Okay, we do have some colorations on the floor and very nice refractions on the gemstones. But we can do a bit better because we are losing, if we go back to the original, some contrast in the gemstones. So what we're going to do is that we're going to then mix again with the original shader, the principal shader here, 50-50, or maybe more or less. Let's see, this is 0, this is 1. Maybe let's go at 55. Okay, and now it's all about tweaking the power of the lights and the rest of the scene, the floor, the material floor. Okay, but this is already looking very interesting. I'm going to bring a saturation node here on the transparency, maybe at 5. And let's do a couple of things. Let's bring some bevel. It's gemstones. Very slight. Let's go 24 samples. A very... Okay, let me remove the noising on the viewport. Okay, that's pretty great. Let's do it at 0.2, something very slight. And let's bring some Musgrave texture. Musgrave here has a bump. So let's bring it to normal. Add a vector bump on height here. Very slight. It's just to get some bumps here and there. Gemstone. So beware, in cycles, in general in Blender, very, very small numbers can make very much of a difference on the impact on the render. You must know that since day one. Okay, the floor. The floor, let's bring a texture image to the floor right now here. Let's bring an ambient occlusion. Distance maybe 10. Okay. Let's bring a fabric. Let's find a nice fabric, or maybe wood. Let's try some wood today. Okay, let's rotate. If you want to be able to rotate, bring the texture coordinate, vector mapping. And let's rotate 90 degrees. Okay. Let's make specular at 0, roughness at 1. Let's bring in some color node here, saturation value at 5. It's a very simple setup, but we can see, thanks to the light path node and the transparent shader and mixing the shaders, we can get something very interesting out of the new shadow caustics feature. I think you can agree. This is a small experiment. What we could do also is that we could change, let's duplicate this. We could make some change to the color of this friend. There's some greenish sapphires, greenish, or maybe purplish here, or pinkish. Some nice pink sapphire, you know, to make something interesting. Okay, so this is a first solution. I haven't done anything to the world setup here. Let's bring a texture coordinate because we can change a lot the reflections by moving with the mapping. We can rotate. Let's start trying this at 45. Okay, that's a bit better, because what I don't like at the normal position is the reflection on the main table of this sapphire. Look at it. We can see the structure of the HDR there. I don't like it. So let's try to rotate this. It changes obviously a lot. Okay, here also you can see that it changes a lot on what color gets to the floor, and this is very, actually it's pretty surprising. I thought the spotlights were making more of that, but it comes more from the HDR. So oh, and yet one thing that obviously we need to bring in is the depth of field. Let's put it on this gemstone, especially when you're at such a short distance, like a macro view, a macro photography. The depth of field is going to do a lot. So obviously the placement should be precise enough. The surface of one of the gemstones, let's put it there. Okay, camera, depth of field, yes. Empty, which is going to, let's call it Dove. You know, simple names. Dove and Dove 06. Okay, 06 is pretty good. 12. So the background is blurred a bit, like this. Okay, so we're going to add another mix to the table. Let's use camera ray then, like I said at the beginning. Okay, this is pretty good, but obviously I need to tweak this, and we're going to make another shader here. So I am going to bring the transparent shader, but I'm going to use another line of color effects on brightness and all of that. Okay. So brightness, Shift D. Okay, contrast 0. It's starting to be interesting. But now we're going to mix again this with the original here. And now we can tweak the power of the light on the floor here. Okay, so now we get the best of both worlds. Okay, and we have more color on the floor. So I'm going to copy this here and obviously change it to pink. But now you have the complete solution to getting those colored shadows on the floor. It's using the new shadow caustic feature, which makes those shadows in generals that we have here and there, you would not get them without that new feature, because the shadow caustics take into account the refraction of the object, of the material. And for gemstone, obviously, it's very important. All right. So let's save this scene and let's save as, and let's make version 2. Let's go. So we're going to work on a variant of what I just did. So let's start with the floor. I'm going to bring another floor. I'm going to bring a fabric, because the original I did and that people liked a lot and asked a tutorial about was the fabric one. So let's try to find a fabric. Okay, this one's going to be perfect. This is type of denim. Maybe let me tweak the proportion here a bit. Okay, we have this. So funnily, I had no bump map. Doesn't matter. Let's bring this to the bump here. Normal, add vector bump. A slight bump on the floor. 3 maybe. It doesn't change much. Honestly, I even forgot on the other one. Okay, we have this. And the thing we're going to do, a couple of hairs. So let's bring a curve Bezier to the view somewhere here. Now let's bring a geometry round at 0.01, 0.03, maybe this, resolution 10, fill caps, yes. Now the resolution here 45 and the tip, the radius 0. Okay, we have this. We're going to make some, and like I keep saying, because this is a very close-up view, we need some particles here on the fabric plus, and we're going to put this number and here. Okay, now render as object, and the object is the Bezier curve. The size, let's put it at 1. Alt C. This one is a mesh now. Let's call it hair. Let's put the hair in here. The size and all, maybe the position. I can. Let's go to edit mode and let's move this to change the. Okay, we have this. This is pretty good. Now let's go to children. Children interpolated, yes, but scale randomness 1, yes. Amount 200. This is pretty good. It's maybe too much. Okay, now something crazy, but don't forget, crazy, it's what makes things good. The hair as an object must receive the shadow caustics. Yep, it must receive it because it's in the shadow of the gemstones, and it's very important for this scene. And this is especially why the render time is going to go up quite much. But it's a close-up view and we need that realism now and today here with this scene. All right. Now the side, let's keep working on the particles here. Maybe the scaling here, or maybe at 0.7. Okay, it's pretty good. And we can make some clumping here, I think. Clump, yeah, perfect. Here, and roughness and kink. I think the kink works. Kink curl. We need some material on the hair. Should I start with the material of the floor? On the hair. Okay, but what I'm going to do is that the hair itself is not going to participate in casting shadows. And this is going to relieve a bit calculations here and there. Okay, now a second, you need to check the face orientations. Very good. And let's go to tweaking the hair's materials. So the hair is going to get a new material here. We're going to remove the bump map in the hair. Now what I like to do is that the alpha, let's bring it down. Depends on the scene and the light in the scene. Okay, now let's work on the amount. Maybe let's go at 200. Yes, the length may be more. This one can grow here. So let's grow on render. Again, sized 15 or even a 2. And also then what I do is that I take the hair. Let's take this one. And then I make a different version. Subdivide here. We're going to make another type of hair. Okay. Copy it again. Make INC. Hair 2. Let's put the same material here. Hair. And even there, I think I will change also material here. All right, so here what we're going to do is have, let's go 100 here, and let's add another field, 100. Now object is here number 2. Okay, interpolate children, yes. Let's hide the original. Okay, we have this. Okay, so object rotation, yes. I need to move this again here. Okay, it's pretty good. Now children interpolate 150. Okay, and let's work on the does the roughness okay, roughness works. This is pretty nice. So this adds some randomness to the hairs and hair shape strand. So this is how you do a very simple hairy floor. So visibility, shadows not, but shading, caustics. Yeah, okay, it receives the caustics. That's pretty nice. Okay, so now obviously the colors and the light mood has changed a lot. Okay, and I need to tweak a couple of things with the light and the colors. Okay, this is closer to what I want, because I just want this spot to reflect on the front here with this gemstone. Okay, we have this. Now the hairs, they have the same problem. Let's copy these nodes, copy. Let's bring it here. And this should come here. All right, let's bring it here. And you're gonna get this. But maybe those hairs can have a slightly different bluer hue. Okay. And darker, but maybe still bluer like this. Yeah, it's trying to be a bit more interesting. And other hair can get another color to maybe purplish for these guys, or reddish, or greenish. Okay, here I worked on their hair a bit more. What I did is that on the first hair I duplicated the mesh and gave it another shape, and I tweaked the kink and all kind of deformation. I removed most of them, and also I gave it a solidify modifier to make it thicker, and like I explained before, I gave it a slight greenish hue. And also don't forget how much I love gemstones. Gemstones brought me to the jewelry field in the first place, so I have a very special bond and relation to gemstones, and I think it shows in this tutorial and others. And also thanks to everybody. I think you're already noticing that I'm bringing really original and high quality tutorials and material to this channel, and the channel keeps growing. I hope it's going to keep growing, obviously. And also remember that you can become a member of this channel to support my work. Members don't get special videos, but you get complete 3D scenes with materials each month. That's something you won't get anywhere else at this level of quality. So thanks for supporting my work, and see you soon.